Hey guys, it's Heather Gill. I'm here today, Texas Elder Care, talking with Mary Nichols. She is with Texas Caregivers for Compromise. And oh my goodness, Mary, I really appreciate you joining me this afternoon. Tell us a little bit more about what got you going with this, the why, the who, the how, the whole deal. Would love to know more.
So last year, my brother and I, as usual, went to see my mother, visited with her, picked up her laundry, and told her we would see her tomorrow. But tomorrow did not come for 202 days. And it was only after we formed this group, we petitioned our legislators, we held a rally, we had traveling signs, we sent proposals, we sent petitions. It wasn't until this group of 3,100 people actually really got busy and got working and made sure that our legislators knew that we expected some answers. We weren't going to sit around and wait for answers any longer. My regret is that it took me a little while to get mad enough to do something. We were locked out March 13th, and it was June the 12th before I started an online petition. It was July the 12th before I started Texas Caregivers for Compromise. But July 12th, we hit the ground running. By August 8th, we had a rally at the Capitol, and we have not stopped working since.
Wow. That's impressive. I mean, so for 202 days, it took that long for y'all to get access to go see your mom again. So was she like in a nursing facility or like a continuing care or maybe like an assisted living? Like where was she and what was the level of care and, more about that?
My mom was and still is in a skilled nursing facility. She is suffering from end-stage Alzheimer's. I used to wonder, why she was even still alive. I feel like now it's because she's our poster child. She's been on the cover of all our petitions. She's been on the cover of our book. She's been on the cover of our essential caregiver proposal. So I think she's just kind of our banner flag. But she was already near the end of her cognition when the lockdown happened. I would sit and read to her and sing to her, and she recognized me. She did react when she heard my voice. She knew it was me. But, March 13th, we weren't allowed back in. I wasn't able to see her again until September the 30th. And by then she had no idea who I was. She was unable to turn her own head. She can't speak. She can't make eye contact. So she's lived in that fugue kind of state for a year now. And I really did not expect her to live this long, but she is a fighter and she has always feared death. And so I think she will fight it with everything she's got, regardless what kind of shape her brain is in. Her innermost being is going to fight, and that's just who she is. So, whatever cognition she had left on March 13th was completely gone when I got back in on September 30th to see her. So she just exists. We feed her, we water her, we care for her, we keep her clean and safe, but she just exists.
Yeah. That's tough. That's and I'm sure that as you've put together this group and rallied toward this cause, I would imagine that you've heard some similar stories from other folks, because you said y'all are like 3,100 people strong. Y'all rallied at the Capitol. I mean, goodness, we love our parents, we love our grandparents, and to not have access to them, even if they're not like maybe physically hurt in the same way someone would be at a hospital, like they're still there receiving care. And like you talked about, like dementia and like those cognitive issues, they still need us. They still need us to be there. They still need us to be present. They need to hear our voice. They need to feel our touch. And not being able to be with them, I couldn't imagine,
My mom's story is not one of the worst. The worst stories are the people banging on the window, screaming and crying, not understanding why their loved one can't come in. Feeling abandoned. My mother had the blessing of losing her cognition and not knowing she was alone. And that is a blessing, because so many other people knew they were alone and they died alone. There are stories, people call me all times of day and night, text me, email me, that they could not get in to see their loved one and their loved one was actively dying. And we had to contact their ombudsman, or I would tell them how to contact their ombudsman. And that ombudsman would let the facility know they were required to let them in when they were actively dying, and they would get in there, and by the time they got in there, their loved one was gone. My mom's story is not at all one of the worst stories. My mom's story is actually one of the least horrific stories. And my husband says he sees me grieve all the time, but I don't know that I grieve so much for my mother as I grieve a whole lot for all these other individuals, the ones who walk in and find their loved one deceased after they have not been able to get in to see him in their very first visit. They walk in and they're the ones to find their loved one gone. They're terrible stories, terrible stories. Loved ones who died totally and completely isolated in a room all by themselves. People who said goodbye to their loved ones over virtual visits because they weren't allowed to get in there to see them. And they're just tragic, tragic stories of people suffering and dying alone. And that's what haunts me, and that's what keeps me going. A lot of people think I'm doing it out of love and devotion for my mother. I started angry because I couldn't get in to see my mom, but I got in to see my mom September 30th. That's not what keeps me going. It's the people who can't get in to see their loved ones that keeps me going.
Right. No, I have a very good friend of mine. Her father he was aging, and he died of old age. But right when COVID hit, he'd gone into the hospital, and she basically forced her way in there, and like they were threatening to take her to jail. And she's like, "Well, my dad's here dying. I'm not going anywhere." And she was able to stay there and be by his side when he passed. But like, I know that hasn't happened for some folks, like you're talking about, and some people haven't had that opportunity to be there at that time. So it's crazy that 2020 brought that kind of stuff to light, but it did. But thank goodness we've got some like action out of it, right? Because you saw the need, you've stepped up, you've done some things about it. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit about Proposition 6. I know that y'all had a big hand in this, and I'd love to hear more about it. Can you explain to the audience what that is, what it's about, and how we can pitch together and make this work out well?
So what Proposition 6 does is it's kind of a backup to Senate Bill 25 that took effect September 1st. Senate Bill 25 was a bill filed by Lois Kolkhorst, the senator out of the Houston area, the Brenham area. And that bill requires that facilities allow each resident to appoint 2 essential caregivers. Our group, Texas Caregivers for Compromise, actually introduced the concept of essential caregivers to the state of Texas. It was our proposal that introduced that concept to the state of Texas. Relentlessly, we were sending that proposal to Texas Health and Human Services, to the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, and the Health Human Services Committee, the House Health Human Services Committee, every week. And then we started doing it twice a week. We were sending this to them. And once we got the attention of Senator Kolkhorst and Representative Frank, and even Scott Sanford out of the Plano area, there were several representatives that saw the need for this and got behind it. There was solid support for that. However, as we have seen in the last year, there is not any law in existence that cannot be paused unless there is a law that says you can't pause it. And throughout the country, nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, intermediate care facilities, home health facilities, all of these facilities, the rights that are guaranteed to residents, all of their rights, the right to receive mail, the right to vote, the right to choose their own doctor, use their own clothes, all of these rights have been put on hold. There are people who did not get to vote last year, and that's a sacred right. But this proposition will guarantee that they will not lose that right to vote, because it will be a constitutional right. So this was not my idea. We did introduce the proposal. We did introduce the concept of essential caregivers to the state of Texas, but this was a very bold concept that came from Representative Frank and Senator Kolkhorst, who said, you know what, that's not taking it far enough, because we have seen that these laws can be paused. So I would love to take credit for that. I don't get credit for that one, but I am going to get behind it solidly. Well, you can see I'm behind it solidly, because clearly it is something that we need. We just live in such an unpredictable time. any law can be paused, even Senate Bill 25 that took effect September 1st. So Prop 6 will make sure that even if that gets paused, they are still entitled to at least one essential caregiver, even in a health emergency, to go in there and give them that physical and emotional support, because we
Right.
saw the disease escalate. We saw the rapid cognitive decline, the severe weight loss, and the despondency that contributed to the escalation of their disease, their decline, that acceleration of decline that contributed to what they're calling failure to thrive. Now, prior to March of 2020, we still had failure to thrive, which is something they called people who just gave up and didn't want to live anymore, quit eating, a natural thing that happens with so many of our diseases, particularly Alzheimer's and dementia patients. At some point, they stop eating and they don't have any other reason to fight. Well, the only thing they have left in life is their human relationships. Most of them are agitated by the sounds of TVs. They're not able to read books. They don't have that kind of vision. They don't have those fine motor skills that allow them to do the crocheting and the knitting and the writing of cards and letters that they used to do. A lot of them can't even play the bingo and dominoes that they used to do. A lot of them, all they have to look forward to is that visit from that loved one, coming and telling them what their grandchildren are doing, what their neighbors are doing. Those visits from those pastors, from their clergy, even from their attorneys, from their ombudsman. All of those visits were shut out. They had nothing except four walls. A lot of these facilities, they weren't even allowed to leave their rooms. My sister-in-law's mother was a very social human being, and she was very fit and healthy, and she didn't last several weeks. When she was no longer able to go to the dining room, she quit putting her earrings on, quit getting dressed, quit getting out of bed, told them, I think it was Mother's Day, told her she just didn't want to live like this anymore. And 3 weeks later, she was gone. She just gave up. Well, that's failure to thrive. And we have seen since the pandemic a 40% increase in failure to thrive diagnosis on those death certificates just since the pandemic. There's a reason for that. And that's isolation. And that's where our catchphrase comes from. The isolation kills too. We take COVID-19 and all disease very seriously. No one has more vested interest in keeping our loved ones safe from disease than family members, but isolation does kill too. So there's got to be a balance between that infection control and that welfare of that resident. And I think the essential caregiver is the way to do that.
Right. No, I agree 100%. As y'all can tell, Mary's very passionate about what she does. And I'm so thankful we've had a chance to talk about this today. It's super important, and I think more people need to know about it. So for y'all that are interested in knowing more and want to give and support and help, and maybe even order some signs and do some rallies yourself, please go to their website. It's texascaregiversforcompromise.com. They're also on Facebook. You can look it up the same way. So if somebody, so you're local here to North Texas, is that correct?
I am. Yeah, okay. I'm actually in Kaufman County.
Okay. Very good. Do y'all have like any upcoming like rallies or any kind of events y'all are doing?
No, there's no need for us to rally. Rallies are actually designed to get the attention of your legislators, and we've had their attention since last year. They have been supportive, and we've not had a need to rally. We did fly a plane over the Capitol in March to make sure they remember that we're still here and we still had a problem. Yeah, we don't have any rallies or events right now. We're just putting signs out and trying to get the word out that Prop 6 is important and people need to vote yes.
Okay, very good. So definitely check their website out. They've got a donation link there on the page. You said it was the PayPal. It's the one with the Texas flag. That's the one you need to click on. That's the one that's Texas focused. So please make sure to give to that effort for Texas. And again, Mary, appreciate your time so very much, for spending time with me this afternoon on this Texas Elder Care interview. If we can do anything to help you, just let us know. And again, I appreciate it. And again, check out her website there and jump in and see how you can help, guys.
Thank you for all your time, Heather.
Absolutely. All right, Mary. Well, you have a great afternoon. Thank you.